Wednesday, July 5th, 2023, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at the Bank of England and central banks in general because the Bank of England is the granddaddy of the central banking scheme. And there's talk about the fact now that the Bank of England needs to be reformed. Personally, I think the Bank of England and central banks, for that matter, are irredeemable. They need to be abolished. And that's what we're going to look at today. Before I start, I'd like to thank all of you for the interest you have in the channel, all the subscribers. And if you watch my videos and haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. Hit the little notification bell to be notified of all my new videos. I do a video every day. And if you like to help the channel, there's a couple of ways you can help the channel directly. That's through Patreon. If you contribute as little as $1 or maybe $5, depending on what you can afford a month, I will answer all your questions you have through Patreon. I try to answer as many as I can on the comment section, but sometimes it's just impossible. And the other way, of course, is through PayPal. So make sure also you share my videos if you think the views that I have and the topics are worth sharing with other people. So back to central banks. And central banks, or centralized credit, is one of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. So if we really want to live in a free market and a free society, not a communist one, I think central banking it doesn't bode, or it doesn't fit in with freedom. And recently, though, there's been talk here in the UK about the Bank of England and reforming it. And why? Well, because it's done a really bad job, of course, of controlling prices. It has been doing a really bad job, even though they've changed the data. And I'm going to put a video I spoke about that up in the cards. And I have proof from the Bank of England itself. Yeah, it hasn't done a good job. Its average CPI from 1997, when it supposedly gained independence, to 2020 was 2.7% and was supposed to be 2%. Yes, they changed the numbers, and now that number has changed to 1.9. But I have proof from the Bank of England calculator that they've basically changed the history to make the Bank of England look more credible. But anyway, last week this article came up in the Daily Telegraph. Bank of England must stop creating money out of thin air. Well, that headline in itself doesn't make any sense, because the purpose of the Bank of England, the creation by Royal Charter in 1694, was exactly to do that, to create money out of thin air. And one of its founders, William Patterson, actually said it, and I quote him: "The bank hath benefit of interest on all monies which it creates out of nothing." So if you stop the Bank of England from creating money out of thin air, you basically you basically destroy the purpose of the Bank of England. So you might as well abolish it. So let's quickly go through this article. It's not very long, and then I'm going to refer to this book, The Nameless War, by Captain A.H.M. Ramsey, and he's got the best explanation about what the Bank of England is all about and other central banks. So let's quickly go through this article, and then we're going to look at the markets. It says the Bank of England must stop creating new money out of thin air and focus on helping savers. A coalition of city figures, economists, and think tank leaders has warned. In a letter sent to Jeremy Hunt, the group called on the government to overhaul monetary policy by changing the bank's remit to focus solely on maintaining the value of the pound by whatever means necessary. The signatories are launching a new honest money initiative to campaign for the reforms. The bank and Andrew Bailey, its governor, have endured heavy criticism in recent weeks with, they call it inflation, but it's CPI, right? At 8.7% last month, while the base rate rose to 5% in an attempt to control it. Mr. Bailey has been accused of acting too slowly to tackle inflation, insisting it was transitory for much of 2021. Meanwhile, prominent figures such as Lord King Lothbury, one of the bank's former governors, have accused it of fueling price rises with excessive quantitative easing. Notice that he says excessive. He doesn't say just quantitative easing, which is printing money out of thin air, right? Creating money out of thin air. Now a group of economic thinkers, including Jeff Blanning, a former investment manager at Schroders, Dr. Eamon Butler, director of Adam Smith Institute, and Mark Littlewood, Director General of Institute of Economic Affairs, has written to the Chancellor demanding a shake-up of the bank. In their letter, the coalition said, "We're living through an overwhelming cost of living squeeze, and millennials are likely to be first generation since before the Industrial Revolution to be poorer than their parents." Well, that was the purpose of the creation of the Bank of England, to bankrupt the nation. And we're going to look at that in a minute. This is in large part because since the financial crisis of 2008, the Bank of England has been creating new money out of thin air to fund the government's promises. Since March 2009, the money supply has surged by 50%, and the bank's actions alone, and half of this, 400 billion, took place in 2020, 2021 to fund lockdowns. I've spoken all about this. I mean, they're starting to catch up, but they have the wrong solutions, of course, in my opinion. The letter accused the government and the bank of being jointly complicit in a debt explosion. Well, I thought the bank was supposed to be independent, but it will never be independent because it has royal assent. It has a charter that's given to it by the government. New money in the system without more goods and services being produced leads to rising prices, which hurts those on low incomes the most, especially young people and pensioners, it said. Well, I've been warning about this since QE started back in 2008, but I was told we're going to have deflation. It erodes people's savings, reduces real terms, wages, makes houses increasingly unaffordable for first-time buyers. Meanwhile, inequality increases as those with most assets, especially financial assets, enjoy undeserved gains. The letter claimed that the monetary system is now out of control and needs reform, with Mr. Hunt urged to create a fairer system as well as a faster growing economy with low inflation by removing the power of the Bank of England to create unlimited quantities of new money. It doesn't say to eliminate its power to create money, because it shouldn't. Money is the most marketable commodity. So if the Bank of England wants to create money, it should go into the mining business, either gold, silver, or copper. To do this, they recommend an amendment to the 1998 Bank of England Act, giving the bank a single objective to maintain the value of the pound in savers' bank accounts by whatever means necessary. Well, first of all, we need to define what a pound is. And actually, a gold sovereign is still legally a pound, and it never changes, and it can never be inflated. There you go. That's a pound. And also, if you want to go back further, these are crowns. Crowns. They used to be 60 pence. So I've got 4 here, 4 times 60, 240. That used to be a pound. So I don't think they mean going back to honest weights and measures, but let's continue here. We're almost over. Currently, the bank has 2 goals to achieve the government's target of keeping inflation at 2%. Well, it's not inflation, it's CPI. They tinker with it and they rip you off. And watch my videos. Watch the Inflation Files playlist as well, while also supporting the government's economic policy, including its objectives on growth and employment. The letter concluded, the era of magic money creation, QE, must come to an end if we want to eliminate the risk of chronic or runaway inflation and return this country to an era of confidence and prosperity. A Treasury spokesman said, we are fully committed to the Bank of England's independence, right, this rubbish, and the inflation target of 2%. Why 2%? Why do you need to debase the currency by 2% every year? That's a tax. The Chancellor will respond to this letter in due course, but in his letter to the governor of the bank in June, he was clear that high inflation is the greatest immediate challenge we must address. The bank has the government's full support as they take action to return to the inflation target. So what do I think about this clamor for reform? Well, I think it's just controlled opposition. It's the people in the City of London. And aside from QE being creating money out of thin air, we've got something called fractional reserve, which the Bank of England does as well, and its agent commercial banks do too, the banks that control it. And the Bank of England was created as a private entity. They made it public in 1946, but I would venture to say that it's still controlled by private interests. It's not there for the benefit of the people. So notice that, they don't want to stop really the Bank of England from creating money out of thin air or other banks. And so now let's go to Captain Ramsey. He was an MP back in the 30s and 40s, and well, Winston Churchill imprisoned him during World War II, maybe because he had hit the nail on the head. So this book was written in 1952, The Nameless War. This is who he dedicates the book to the memory of those patriots at Runnymede signed Magna Carta, and those who in 1320 at Arbroath signed the Declaration of Independence. This book is dedicated July 27th, 1952. This is what he says about the Bank of England here on page 17. The real objective of the glorious revolution was achieved a few years later in 1694, when the royal consent was given to the setting up of the bank. He puts in brackets the Bank of England, and the institution. This is what is very important: national debt. This charter handed over to an anonymous committee the royal prerogative of minting money, converted the basis of the wealth to gold, and enabled the international moneylenders to secure their loans on the taxes of the country, instead of the doubtful undertaking of some ruler or potentate, which was all the security they could previously obtain. So what does that mean? Well, if the state, a king or queen or emperor, decided to go to war or do something stupid and lost a lot of money, there was no national debt. There was no national bank or central bank to help it. And that's why they have to think twice before going on these adventures or undertakings. But the Bank of England made that possible. So this is what he says as well here. The political and economic union of England and Scotland was shortly afterwards forced upon Scotland with wholesale corruption, and in defense of formal protests from every country county, and borough. The main objects of the Union were to suppress the Royal Mint in Scotland and force upon her, too, a responsibility for the national debt. The grip of the moneylenders was now complete throughout Britain. The danger was that the members of the new joint parliament would sooner or later, in the spirit of their ancestors, challenge this state of affairs. To provide against this, therefore, the party system was now brought into being, frustrating true national reaction and enabling the wire pullers to divide and rule. Using their newly established financial power to ensure that their own men and that their own policies should secure the limelight and sufficient support from their papers, pamphlets, and banking accounts to carry the day. Well, there you go. They're canceling the people who are going against the grain nowadays, aren't they? The banks. It's not a surprise. And here's the part where he talks about how this central banking, Bank of England mechanism really hurts the general public and benefits the money changers, or the bankers, as he calls them. Gold was soon to become the basis of loans, 10 times the size of the amount deposited. Well, there's the fractional reserve. In other words, £100 in gold would be legal security for £1,000 of loan. At 3%, therefore, £100 in gold could earn £30 interest annually with no more trouble to the lender than the keeping of a few ledger entries. And here's the other side of the coin. The owner of £100 of land, however, still must work every hour of daylight in order to make perhaps 4%. The end of the process must only be a matter of time. The moneylenders must become millionaires. Those who own and work the land, the Englishmen and the Scotsmen, must be ruined. Well, I would add to the moneylenders the big corporations, which are controlled by the bankers, and they're now billionaires, of course. So, yeah, and he goes on to say, the process has continued inexorably till now, 1952. It has been hypocritically camouflaged by clever propaganda as helping the poor and mulcting the rich. It has been in reality nothing of the kind. It has been in the main the deliberate ruination of the landed classes. So there you go. Not just the landed classes, but the producers of things. So there you go. That's why I think the Bank of England and central banks, all central banks, are irredeemable. They're beyond reform. Their main purpose, of course, is to perpetuate big government. They finance crises, and they keep the national debt growing. And that's why we've got so much debt now. It wouldn't happen without a central bank. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 7:55 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold at $19.22. It's down about $4. The low's been 20 and the high's been 28. Silver is down 15 cents at 22.80. High's been 23.02 and the low 76. Dow futures is down 24. Nasdaq 100 futures down 40. The S&P is down 7. FTSE is down about 28 points. The currencies are pretty much unchanged. The dollar is up a little bit versus the yuan, but apart from that, there's not much going on this morning with the currencies. Aussie dollar is down about 0.25%. The dollar is up slightly versus the Canadian dollar. Kiwi dollar is unchanged. To the general commodities, WTI crude is just below 71. It's down about 0.25%. Brent also down about 1/3. It's at 75.66. Platinum is down $2, trading around $9.15. High-grade copper is down about 0.75%, trading around $3.76. So there you go. With that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.